Hello anybody and everybody who has found this video today. Here we are going to be talking about sort of what is mental health, and the definition is a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. So basically what that means is sort of how you're thinking and sort of how you're feeling about what you're thinking is all sort of tied in together in what we would basically call your mental health. It's important because it literally is in everyone's life. It's around their whole lifetime, and there's no real way to not be affected by your mental health in some sort of way or fashion. And the three sort of factors that would cause a potentially negative mental health would be a biological factor like your genes or your brain chemistry and chemicals, and then it would be either life experiences like trauma or abuse or something like that, and then lastly it would be like a family history of mental health. Like if your parents had mental health issues, you could potentially be at a higher, you are more likely to get it. And then sort of what are the sort of warning signs that someone might be experiencing a negative mental health would be if they're eating or sleeping less, or they're eating and sleeping too much. You can play it both ways, either too less or too much. If they're pulling away from people or usual activities, if they have low or no energy, if they're feeling numb and that nothing matters, if they feel unexplained aches and pains, which can sort of be that psychological idea of like telling yourself you're in pain or something like that. Smoking or drinking or using drugs more than usual, if they do use them at all, or sometimes if they can start. Feeling unusually confused, forgetful, on edge, angry, upset, worried, or scared. A lot of those feelings can sort of be your mental health scattered a bit more and sort of more focused on different regions of sort of the ideas and the emotions tied to those ideas that you could be having. Yelling or fighting with family and friends, experiencing severe mood swings that cause problems in relationships, having persistent thoughts and memories you can't get out of your head, hearing voices or believing things that are not true, thinking of harming yourself or others, inability to perform daily tasks like taking care of your kids or getting to work or school. Now, those are just like a very broad list with a couple of pretty specific ones. Those aren't easily identifiable, or even the symptoms someone might be experiencing if they're experiencing negative mental health. So those aren't like a list of like go-tos for identifying mental health issues. Those are just sort of like a broad idea of what you could be looking for in someone if they are experiencing bad mental health or something like that. The things that like a positive mental health can do for someone is they can realize their potential. They can cope with stresses like your everyday life stresses. They can do productive work. They can make meaningful contributions to their community. And then there's ways to achieve this, and they would be sort of things like getting professional help if you need it, connecting with others, staying positive, getting physically active, helping others, getting enough sleep, and developing coping skills. All of those can work simultaneously and together, and those sorts of things, to help make your mental health more stable and more positive, and sort of prevent yourself from having a real dramatic slip unless something is triggered into having a negative mental health. And then there's a lot of myths that we could debunk here today, like mental health issues won't happen to me, but the fact is that it's very common. 1 in 5 Americans are affected by a mental health issue at some point in their life. 1 in 10 American children experience major depression, and then 1 in 25 Americans live with a serious mental illness, just like for a majority of their life. And so all of those things, like 1 in 5 Americans, like there's 330 million people, and every 1 in 5 of them will experience a mental illness, is quite a large number. I don't know the number off of the top of my head, but if I had to guess, it would be something in this like a 50 to 80 million range. Maybe something like that. Therapy is a waste of time if you can take medication. That's false in the sense that sometimes therapy will work on its own for someone, and sometimes the medication alone will work for someone. And sometimes, if not most of the time, you need both as a combination to work. I know I took both, and it started off with therapy and led to the combination. And you can't just take the meds if it doesn't work. Like sometimes therapy will work better than just taking medication. So therapy isn't just a waste of time if the meds are out. Like there's a reason there's therapy and that it works. And so it's not just a medication sort of thing people can do. You can't do anything to help someone with a mental illness, and that is very hard thing to admit. If you want to help someone, friends and family are most easily sort of accessible to that person, as there's a lot of closer connections and like more bonds there, because over 44% of adults with diagnosable mental health problems and less than 20% of children and adolescents receive needed treatment. So if your friends and family do notice stuff, like, don't be afraid to talk to them about it, and don't be afraid to ask them how their mental health is doing or if they're struggling or things like that, because more often than not, people can get the identifiable help, and if not, they can just get help and they can realize all the things that they're sort of lacking in that sort of space and time. Ways you can do this are you can reach out and let them know that you're available to help, helping them find access to mental health services, learning and sharing the facts about mental health, especially if you hear one that isn't true from them or someone is telling them one that isn't true, so that way you can lead them down the right path. Treating them with respect just as you would anyone else. Don't treat them like they're any different or special just because they have a potentially unique or special mental illness that they're trying to battle, or it's something that's unique to you or something like that. Just treat them like you would treat anyone else. That's the biggest thing you can do. And then refusing to define them by their diagnosis or labels such as crazy. Like, again, that goes to the respect thing. Just treat them with respect. There's a lot more you can accomplish out of being respectful to someone than there is being disrespectful and putting someone else down, especially when they already can be down. Like, why would you make their situation worse for them? And then sort of the last myth and fact we're going to try and get through here is you can't prevent mental illness, which is it's somewhat false, because the fact is you can prevent mental, emotional, and behavioral disorders by addressing like the risk factors that are involved in them, and then you can limit the exposure to potential trauma, and then you can also work alongside, it's mainly like children, youth, young adults, to keep them from experiencing that trauma. And then promoting social, emotional well-being of children and youth leads to a lot of good things like higher overall productivity, better educational outcomes, lower crime rates, stronger economies, lower healthcare costs, improved quality of life, and increased lifespan and improved family life. Like, all of those things are obviously really good, and they're really preventable if you just work with someone, talk to someone, help someone out, versus either treating them differently or not at least talking to them. Like, the biggest thing a person can do is just talk to someone to get them that sort of help that they could need or use or anything like that. And so lastly, we're going to talk about like the recovery you can take on mental illness. There's 4 dimensions for recovering from mental illness. It's your health, your home, your purpose, and your community. Your health, you want to make informed and obviously supportive, healthy choices, physical and emotionally. Your home is having a stable place to live. Purpose is trying to engage in meaningful daily activities that give you a sense of purpose and drive and energy. And then it also gives you working like for independence or income or stuff like that. Your community, you can build relationships and social networking through a lot of different ways and by going to public events and stuff like that. And you can also write out like a recovery plan of your own. If you're struggling with mental health and you want to develop a written recovery plan, it just allows you to identify goals for achieving your wellness that you want to get to. You can specify what you need to do to reach those goals. It includes like the daily activities and your long-term goals, so that way you have a short-term and a long-term prospect to look forward to, which gives you part of that purpose because it gives you a drive to accomplish that thing, to get to the other thing. And it's just a lot of back and forth of just like giving yourself purpose. It gives yourself a healthy relationship, and it'll often build community, and it could often build a home. Track any problems or even successes with your mental health along the way, so that way you know sort of what's working, what isn't, and what you can identify isn't working. identify your triggers or other stressful events so that way you can sort of figure out how to cope with them or deal with them in your own way. Or if it's something like you just need to avoid something, then you can work to avoid that thing. What we've sort of covered here for mental health is the 4 dimensions, your recovery, for the most recent stuff, and sort of what is mental health, all the stuff around identifying mental health and what you can do to help it. And we've tried to debunk some of the myths that can be out there around mental health. I tried to pick some ones that are a bit more common or a bit more talked about in a manner, I guess. But that is all for the video today. I hope you have learned something today or found something inspiring or educational. Make sure to share this with anyone you think might need it, and make sure to see more of this sort of content. Subscribe, obviously, to get this content pushed out to you on a good weekly, we're going for an every other day sort of basis, but you get a weekly worth of content. And make sure to check out the Teespring. All of the profits will go to a monthly foundation, and you get just some cool stuff to wear around. And make sure to keep living a brighter life, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.